If you look at the M-Pesa story, which was exactly that, where we just looked for forgiveness after it was launched, because if you'd waited for regulatory approval, it wouldn't have happened.
Hey wadau mazi, everyone talks about your network is your net worth when it comes to wealth creation. Our guest for this episode, Gina Din thinks different.
The first time that we met was there were 3 people in the room that were all born in 1961, that were all left-handed, and that had a connection to Kenya. And that was Barack Obama, Uhuru Kenyatta, and myself.
Gina Din is a pioneer in the PR industry, and apart from being part of the team that started building Safaricom from scratch. Do you know how big it could be when now you're making the presentation to actually get this off the ground?
I think a lot of the things that we did were just intuitive. So, you're not thinking of how big it could be at that time. You're just you're visualizing the potential of what Michael Joseph is telling you. You're investing in potential.
Leo tunaongea business on the international level.
I know this because this is what I've done in other countries. And I'm like, okay, but you've never done this in an African country. Yeah. I know this continent.
Yes.
And this is the way I think it should be done. I know this.
Gina Din, the author of this autobiography, Daughter of Africa, is a walking manual of business success when it comes to communication. Now, we want to make the best of that experience on this episode.
I don't know how old I was, 15 or 16. I'm going to call him and say, can I come to the inauguration? And he's like, yeah, why not? And so I think it's the audacity of just being able to ask. What's the worst thing that somebody can say? They can say no. But I have zero problem asking.
I'm your host, Dr. Kingori, and here's another reason to stay subscribed to our channel. Come out, just subscribe. This right here is another reason to hit subscribe and turn on the notifications bell. Now, everybody talks about a smart business. Smart business, left, right, and center. But what's a smart business really? I'll tell you what I think a smart business is. Imagine fitting an entire organization within the confines of a smartphone, tablet, ama monitor. Nimekupoteza? Let me bring it closer home. You see your phone? The way iko na apps, Notepad, Instagram, Google Maps, bas. Now, a team of brilliant individuals across different time zones in the world sat together and came up with a platform that carries all the applications you need to run a business in the modern world, and they call it Odoo. Now, to give you a highlight of the wonders Odoo can do. Now, just think of any business process. Utapata Odoo has an app for it. You want to streamline your accounting services? Odoo has an app for it. HR, manufacturing, inventory, sales, they have an app for your business. And still, we can go on and on. Now, here's the beauty. Odoo has been designed to cater for businesses at all levels, be it when you're starting out to blue chip level. Odoo has also been built with both the entrepreneur and the customer in mind. And it gets better. Take the e-commerce app, for example. Odoo allows you to create a fully fledged, intuitive, and easy-to-use website that allows you to sell your products online in just a few clicks. Na hakuna mambo complicate hapa. No coding, sijui knowledge ama special computer skills needed. This is just simply dragging and dropping blocks na uko na world-class website. And guess what? You can get it for free, including hosting and support. And that is if you choose it as the first application on the Odoo platform. And that deal goes for all the other apps nime mention. Whichever unachagua to be your first app on the Odoo platform, inakuja free for life. But as your business grows, you can add more apps on need basis at an affordable price. Now, Odoo also has a team of experts on standby to answer all your questions and enquiries. And for this, you get to choose a time and date that is convenient for you. And how do you get started, you may ask? Very simple. Just click the link tumekuwekea kwa description ya hii video, and just like that, you get your business to join the league of smart businesses in the world.
My business got acquired the year of COVID. Thank God.
Acquired as in?
International, yeah. International company. The biggest company in the world, Edelman, out of New York, acquired my business.
For someone who doesn't understand, because we have to cover everybody, the beauty about this is, as we will find out from your book, you always operate with everybody in mind.
Sure.
For someone who doesn't understand acquisition, you started your company from scratch.
from scratch.
Acquisition, yes. Acquisition means you're selling it to someone else, right?
Somebody's acquisition means that somebody somewhere in the world has seen your business as a worthy business for them to add to the existing businesses they have. So in my case, Edelman in New York did not have a presence in East Africa.
Yes.
And they saw my agency as a viable, profitable business to add to their existing African businesses. They were only in Johannesburg. So they approached me. And that began this negotiations and the due diligence that they were doing on me.
Yes.
It was very long. It was 2.5 years of due diligence, and it was really hard. International companies buying African companies will always have challenges. And they can afford, very expensive lawyers, very expensive accountants. So the negotiation process is complicated, and it's challenging, and it's hard. But also when you go through it and you pass the due diligence, you're so grateful that you've run a business well enough for it to meet global standards. But it wasn't easy. It was probably one of the most hardest things I've been through, was the due diligence to sell my business.
To put this in context, or to actually simplify it further, with all the complications that come with it, this means you're selling your name to a multinational. Like the brand Gina Din, your company is titled your name, but you've built it to a level that it has attracted an international organization to actually buy it.
Correct. It meant I was selling my brand. Initially, there was the talk of them buying the name. But when we came down to the nuts and bolts of the figures, it really wasn't, I didn't feel comfortable selling my name. And so I sold them my business. So they were able to buy my business, my clients, the staff that I had, my office premises, all that. But I wanted to keep my name, which I did. And so my name is my name. And I was very fortunate to have very good legal advice.
So if they buy your name, does that affect your personal name?
So I couldn't then operate again using Gina Din, because that would have been bought by them.
You could just be you, but you could not do business as you.
Yeah. And now, because I didn't sell my name, and the 5 years that I was required to have the non-compete is over, I can do business using my name.
And there's no emotional attachment to what you've built over all those years?
No, I was just really ready. I was really ready to move on. It was, it was very big. It was very taxing emotionally. And I really wanted the freedom to be able to do different things.
Okay.
Corporate, I'd done most of Kenya. I'd done probably 80% of corporate Kenya. So there wasn't very much more for me to discover. And, it was the same thing. So if you do Kenya Airways and you get Kenya Airways for another year, it's the same thing. It's not really, I wasn't really learning anything more because I had done it. So it was the same thing. And I really wanted to have freedom. I wanted the freedom to travel. I wanted the freedom to be able to work when I want to work. And projects that I find really interesting to work on. So not really corporate work. I wrote my book. I'm very keen on getting more African women to tell their stories, to get more African stories out there. Because if you go to a bookshop, there are not many written by African women. And so, I wrote my book because I suddenly realized that my story is a good story. It's not like a wow, amazing story. There's some really amazing stories out there. Some women that have started out from very difficult circumstances and have become, these incredibly successful, accomplished women, but they're not telling their story. And so, part of what I want to do, and I am doing, working with a publisher in the US right now, is to expand the range of Daughter of Africa to get more women to tell their stories. So there are those kind of things that were interesting for me, and that gave me the freedom after I sold my business to be able to focus on that.
Okay, the statement there was nothing more to do is so bold, and I'll tell you somewhere else you write about it. There's page 142 of your book. It's a very interesting read. You can actually grab Gina's book at the Nuria store. We have a link in the description below. There's another very bold statement like that one. I had worked my way up the ladder until, not there. I'd spent the last 14 years at Barclays. And we both knew that was a statement, as in that is you talking about as in the feeling between you and your boss, Bob Budd. I'd spent the last 14 years working at Barclays, and we both knew I'd reached a point where there was nowhere left to go.
There wasn't.
This is Barclays.
But I'm not a banker.
Yes, but this is a special kind of freedom. You have a job, it pays well. If you want, you can continue with the job.
Depends what you want out of life. I mean, for me, life has been a continuous learning process. I learn every day. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm learning things every single day. So yes, I could have stayed at Barclays for sure. I mean, I had my job till I was 65 or whatever it was, if I wanted it. But just wasn't enough. The same thing, great place to work, a lot of freedom very young. The ability to create your own job description. I mean, these are real privileges to have at the age that I had them. And I think I did a great job. They liked me, I liked them. But you get to some place and there's no room. You're like, okay, do I want to do this for another year? The fact that I can do it with my eyes closed now because I know it, is not enough. I need to do something that's going to inspire me, that's going to make me want to learn new things. And I started my business, and I have to say it's been so fascinating because, when you have a business that covers a wide spectrum of clients in the way that my business did, is you're learning something about a new business all the time. So we worked on, on food businesses, we worked on airlines, we worked at central bank. So you become a little bit of an expert on all these different things. And for me, that's just been like a whole education. So I know a little bit about many things. And while I was at Barclays, I knew a lot about banking. And that was basically about it. And so now, suddenly the world opened up to me in a way that I never, ever imagined it would. It's a really fascinating field. It's like being a lawyer, right? You get to, you have so many different clients doing very many different things. It's just fascinating. And learning about new businesses and what goes into running those businesses. Whether it's a hotel group, we worked with Serena Group for many years, worked with Sarova, or airlines, Kenya Airways for many years, Central Bank of Kenya, South African breweries, all these different brands. It just has taught me so much. And I feel that I have the ability to now talk about different things because I've learned the businesses. Because you go behind the closed doors when you're, representing one of these companies. You learn the business inside out. You have to. You're telling their story. So, you have to become that brand for the period that you're representing them. It's a very fascinating, and people don't realize how, important it is for you to immerse yourself in the business of your client. People look at PR very much as, very glamorous and just the, the parties and the golf competitions. And I mean, they're there. Those parts of it are there. But there's the parts of it that the hard work is really reading all the documents about these businesses, immersing yourself deeply into what those businesses do, what their promise to the client is, and how they're meeting that promise, if they're meeting that promise, the trust the client has with them. So it's much deeper than a lot of people think. And PR is evolved so much with digital media. Of course, when I started, it was only the newspapers and a couple of TV stations. And we went through the whole process of then having digital media and having to be responsive in real time. Because before, something would appear in the newspaper and you'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll respond tomorrow because the newspaper is going to be printed at the end of the day, the next day. And then suddenly digital media happens and you don't have the luxury of time. So, you then realize you have to have a few responses ready. You have to bank some responses. You have to start imagining what those questions could be. So you bank some responses. You're like, scenario playing. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? With Safaricom, I know when we first started, the network just wasn't big enough to handle the demand. So one of the scenarios we had was, what if the network fails? So we have those responses ready.
Wow. From delaying because when the newspaper will be printed to now planning responses
to be responsive
in
immediately, so you scenario build. We had scenario building for all our clients. We would have different scenarios for every single client. If it was a bank, what if there's a robbery? What if there's an armed robbery? What if the ATMs all go down at the same time? These are scenario buildings that you have to prepare for and that you have to have. So people never realize the amount of work that goes into that one client is having all the responses prepared and templates that you've now cleared with your client. Like, these are the different scenarios of what could happen. Because if I'm going to speak on behalf of you and you're the bank, I need to know that this response is okay with you, should this happen.
There's a word you have dropped severally, the client,
Mm-hmm.
the client. When you start at Barclays, this bulldozing, let's call it bulldozing, comes in the boardroom where the bank is programmed to a certain type of client. Then you introduce the idea of banking the ordinary person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you show them the opportunity of the businessman downtown, right? Again, this is a conversation that comes up when Safaricom is coming to Kenya. Mm-hmm. And the entry into the market. They have an idea of who they want, but you have an idea of who they need.
True.
And when you stand up to Michael Joseph and tell him that the Kenyan customer more than the overseas customer that Vodafone knows,
Yeah.
right? What does it mean the Kenyan customer? Please tell us about the Kenyan customer.
I think it was really interesting with Michael is because he came here, with a lot of experience in the mobile industry, a lot, very, very experienced man, but with no experience in Kenya. And then he meets us. And there was, definitely a point when he was just like, but you've never worked in a mobile company before. You don't even know what it is. We're building a whole industry, an industry you've never heard of. So I'm not quite sure that you are the right person to be telling me who my customer is. And so there's that point when we're going to and fro about, well, I think I know who your customer is. It's not who you think it is, but I can take you to where the volumes of people are going to be. So you can be in CBD and you can be getting the customers in the skyscraper buildings there, which is fine. And they're definitely a customer, but there's another customer that is so desperate for a phone to be connected because they have businesses to run, they have family, in the village. They have no way of communicating. The people in CBD have a pretty good fixed phone network that's working. So the need for them isn't as much as the need for the people in the informal sector. The needs of the people in the informal sector are definitely more. So if you go where the needs are, I think that might be a smarter way to approach the business. And the one thing I have to say about Michael is that, after you've convinced him that you might have an idea, then he's willing to sort of say, and he might go kicking and screaming like, I don't want to go to where you're taking me, but I'll go. And he did, and we went, and he was just blown away. He was just like, wow, I think you might have a point here. and maybe we need to produce a product for that market. And so it was, it was really interesting to see the shift in their strategy, going from this is a phone network which will be initially for corporate Kenya, to actually this is a phone service for Kenyans.
That's very deep, considering you have a very rough start with Michael Joseph. Actually, if you could just have snapped kidogo, everything changes in the journey of what Safaricom becomes, right?
True.
Comparing that to comparing your presentations to what the customer Safaricom needs at first versus how excited Michael Joseph is about the M-Pesa idea, right? Able to take us through what it was like to build Safaricom from scratch. Because first of all, I was so fascinated that the word the name Safaricom comes from your agency.
Yeah.
What is it like to build Safaricom from scratch?
So it was interesting for me because as you know, I'd spent the 14 years at Barclays, international brand, very British in the way its headquarters were in London. So very British in the way it ran. And a lot of trust in it because it had come from way back before independence.
Yes.
And so it was a brand we all grew up with and we trusted.
Yes.
But we were at a cusp when Safaricom came where we were really keen on things that we have developed as Kenyans, as Africans. We were proud, getting more proud of who we were as people. Many years have passed since independence, but we're very keen to be Kenyan. We're very proud to be Kenyan. We're very proud to be African. And, I could see during my time at Barclays that it was like, oh yeah, but these international banks. So there was always that in quite a negative tone, these international banks. I know there was a time when Barclays had a minimum balance. And if you fell below that, then you just couldn't have an account there. And so you looked at the average teacher, and I remember this being a real issue, which we had to fight, or I had to fight for, is to say, suddenly you're going to have a minimum balance where teachers across the country won't be able to bank at Barclays because they don't have the minimum balance. And that is a huge problem because teachers are such an important part of the community. And so so that was a battle that I was going through, but it was very much seen as in the media was like these international banks who are putting these minimum balances. And there was some negative tone to an international brand. So I came with that mindset. And so when Vodafone came to talk to us, we're like, this is great. It's going to change the very fabric of Kenyan society, for sure. But I don't think it should be called Vodafone Kenya. And they were like, well, of course, that's the brand. That is the brand. Vodafone is the brand. Do you know how strong the Vodafone brand is? And I'm like, I mean, yes, I traveled. I know how strong it is. I'm just saying, I think for Kenya, it needs to be a local brand. It needs to be a brand that we have ownership over. And it's got to be a brand that connects with the Kenyan public. And that was a big war. I mean, back and forth, back and forth. And eventually they came around to saying, actually, we think that's a really good idea. And I was very excited to hear that. But it also meant for us, it made our life easier because we were telling a Kenyan story. We weren't importing a story. We were telling our story. And that makes a huge difference. Stories, brands are stories at the end of the day.
Brands are stories.
Brands are stories. Everything's a story. The way you represent a brand is you're telling the story of that brand. So if we have a Kenyan story to tell, that suddenly makes it very much easier for Kenyans to own it, to say this is ours, and you've seen it. I mean, Safaricom is a Kenyan brand.
At that time,
it was fully owned by Vodafone. So it wasn't even on the Nairobi Stock Exchange yet. We're talking way back.
Do you know how big it could be when now you're making the presentation to actually get this off the ground?
I think a lot of the things that we did were just intuitive. So, you're not thinking of how big it could be at that time. You're just you're visualizing the potential of what Michael Joseph is telling you. You're investing in potential. Like you're listening, but all you're listening to is, wow, this is the potential of this brand is huge. And I feel so proud and so privileged that I was part of the initial story of Safaricom. I really do. It was one of the honors of my lifetime, was to be part of something that changed the very fabric of Kenya.
When someone reads through the story about how you get Safaricom off the ground, in your offices that
Michael Joseph said were a dump
and a campsite. Yes. When you look at that,
that was when he was in a good mood.
Really?
There were worse.
Really? And you rode through that?
I mean, you do. You're gonna deal with all sorts of people.
Knowing you, and first of all, you write about you and your dad, and knowing you not to take any form of rudeness, let me call it rudeness or arrogance from anyone. How are you able to adjust to take that from Michael Joseph?
So I think with Michael is that I could see through that. I could see through, the hubris, the very aggressive.
He could watch this.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. I hope he watches it. I'll send it to him. But there was something about Michael. He's highly intelligent. And he definitely knows his stuff.
Yeah.
All we needed to do was to bring what I was trying to tell him to do with his knowledge, and we needed to find a meeting place for that. And after that, we were going to create magic. And so, I had to put up with a lot of the things that he was saying, because he didn't, and I never took them personally. I'm just like, well, that's how Michael is. That's his personality. Because beyond all that, there was a very, very dedicated, smart and intelligent man who really wanted to make this product here very special. And he could see the potential too. After we went to Kibera and we went to Kangemi and we went all over the country, because I traveled with Michael all over Kenya, Garissa, all over the place. He could see the potential, and you could see it in him. Like every day there would be something new that he'd have thought about. So he's a clever man. So all we needed to do is to find a place where we were going to meet. Our minds were going to meet at some point. And so, being patient to just like, well, Michael, I think this. And he'd be like, I don't know, you don't know what you're talking about. I know this because this is what I've done in other countries. And I'm like, okay, but you've never done this in an African country. Yeah. I know this continent.
Yes.
And this is the way I think it should be done. I know this. So we had some really interesting times. And Michael is one of my very good friends, with a relationship, again, that we've built over 25 years. He's a very, we talk often, very supportive of everything that he does. But that doesn't mean we had an easy time working together.
Yeah.
There were times when it was very challenging. But I have huge respect for him.
Thank you. On his behalf. So when you're making this presentation, you're not even sure they will take it because of how much of a rough start it's been?
First of all, I've got to sell that idea to my own team, who are just like, no, Gina, just let's just go with Vodafone. Let's not rock the boat. They might be upset that we're not willing to use their names. So a lot of my team were just like, they thought I was a bit crazy. So, I had to sell it internally to my team first, because they're the ones that are going to work on this, on this account. So I said, I just got an idea. I think they should be called a Kenyan brand. And they were just like, okay, I think you're pushing it.
Yeah.
So first I had to sell it to my internal team.
And you have designed the logo too?
No, we haven't designed the logo, because they had a creative agency for that.
Or they have an agency for that? You just come up with the name and present it.
Yeah, and the look and the feel. It's just like, so the red and the green. Those ideas are just like, you look at the Kenyan flag, we're taking out colors that will show a sense of belonging.
The caption, the better option?
No, that came from the creative agency.
That came from the creative agency, but this is a whole.
This is like the overall
ecosystem.
The holistic kind of look and feel.
But seeing what you, seeing how much work it took to get Safaricom off the ground. Could this be an explanation as to why other networks have struggled in Kenya?
It possibly could. I mean, I do think the other agencies didn't, weren't part of the Kenyan community as much as Safaricom was. So I think what we did at Safaricom really well is as soon as we were off the ground, we were, building schools, building hospitals. We did a lot of medical camps all around the country. We did a lot of community work. And so very fast, Safaricom became part of very many different communities. And I think that was really the magic. It's just that they, the other networks really didn't they might have done a few sponsorships here and there, some golf or whatever, but they weren't really deeply part of Kenyan communities. So if you look at, places that Safaricom have invested, I don't think there's a single part of the country where Safaricom haven't impacted in some way or the other. And that started way back.
And this goes a long way to explain the roots in the country.
And trust.
And trust. But then there's also now, and I believe you are best qualified to help us with this, the idea of brand love and let's call it brand love. Like Kenyans, at some point, there is a relationship where you would feel people hate Safaricom, but you have to use Safaricom.
But it's ours. So, it might be, there might be times when we're just upset by the service that we get. But it's like, you have that cousin that is an annoying cousin, but you're not going to not see them. They're your cousin. So there's a relationship there, which Kenyans have that with Safaricom. It's like, yeah, we get upset with it, but at the end of the day, it's ours.
Yes.
So there's a sense of ownership that, if you think about it, has come back from the roots of what we created. The name, the community feel, the trust that, actually, I trust this brand because in my village at home, they built the gate to my daughter's school. So there's a sense of, they like me, I like them. It's really important, and it is definitely the work that they've done all over the country that has, made Safaricom part of our daily lives. Whether we love them, whether we're angry with them, whether we're very proud of what they've done, whether we don't like, the fact that the internet is down. At the end of the day, it's our brand. So we'll be a lot more forgiving.
Okay, and when this line of thought started from your understanding of the Kenyan customer. So which one is more weighty? Affordability, understanding their pocket, or how much you connect to them? I
think connecting is probably, I think people will pay a little bit more for connection. So if it's, if you feel like I have a part in the way that brand shows up, it's slightly more expensive, but I feel part of that, then I'd rather go with that. So I do think Safaricom have done that really well.
Okay.
They've made themselves part of the Kenyan culture, the Kenyan community. I mean, you remember their ads are beautiful. The Kenyan, they depict the whole country. So they're very much the soul of who Kenyans are. And they captured that soul very well.
I refuse to separate you from an advert by Barclays. And I remember it because it's very personal for me. A robot used to dance.
That's right.
And it used to sing a song. And I remember that advert, and I hate my cousin for it. Because she came and danced how that robot danced and sang the song and told me that robot comes on. And around that time, they used to switch off the TVs. Not your house.
Yeah.
The networks would go off, I think around midnight.
Yeah.
And I waited till midnight to see we used to call it Tile Labondo robot. But I didn't see it. But it still sticks to me.
Yeah, that was when I was there.
That was when you were there?
Yeah.
What goes into making a communication that sticks like that for a business? And I think we can tie that to what are the possibilities of someone watching, they're starting a business now, the opportunities of growing to Safaricom levels?
So I think, I think connecting is really important, is being able to totally connect with your customer. What your customer's looking for, the story that you're telling, is it a story that your customer believes, or is it just a story? Are you proving you are who you say you are? Saying you're part of the Kenyan community, show me that you are. Safaricom could tick all those boxes. They were who they said they were. So everything that they said that they were, in all their ads, a Kenyan product, featuring Kenyans, featuring beautiful places in Kenya, they were definitely part of the Kenyan story. And I think sometimes what happens in communications is that we create a story for a client that's not very authentic. And I'm seeing that more and more with international agencies now working on the continent, not just in Kenya, but on the continent. There will be a solution for a PR problem that is developed in New York. And it'll be brought here. And you're just like, well, okay, that's not going to work, because it's an American solution to what is very much a Kenyan or an African problem. So I think the more globalization happens and the more that agencies do get acquired or become part of larger networks, we tend to lose the local knowledge and the local nuances, because there are areas that I understand very well. There'll be very local nuances though. So you might want to give me your solution based in New York of what you would do in a crisis, but that's really different to the crisis that we're facing here. So you can't give me a global solution. Which is why local knowledge is really important. So for all these, acquisitions that happen, or big brands that come into, like Vodafone came, and they had a lot of the technical know-how. Obviously, they're very successful, but they were very happy to include African examples and knowledge, and really get to know the customer. And that's what I started doing when I was at Barclays, like really getting to know who our customer is. Where it wasn't just the large corporates. It was the man making the wheelbarrows. It was the man selling the sweets. So it's really getting to know who your customer is. It's so key. And I think a lot of people don't do that.
It's not about how good the advert is, how high quality it is.
And you can say, my office in Johannesburg or in New York gave me this solution. Well, okay, but it's not going to work here. And so many times when we handled international brands, and we did a lot of that, South African breweries, for instance, a lot of the work would come out of Johannesburg, and South African breweries is very, very successful in South Africa. It's huge. But it wasn't going to work here, because here you had East African breweries, you had Tusker, you had all these local brands that people owned and loved, and you were competing against them. So you needed people with local knowledge, with local nuance. The local nuances and knowledge is very, very important. And people tend to forget that.
And there's a clever thing you do with Safaricom, which you say, if you're going to change the world, you might as well do it on your birthday. And my conclusion is, Safaricom was your birthday gift.
Well, I was Safaricom. I was their gift.
Perspective. Did they know what you did there?
I mean, after a few days, and I just said, oh, by the way, the day we're launching is also my birthday. And Michael's like, so I said, so we're going to have a big party on my birthday with 10,000 people. It's the biggest birthday party I've had, was actually the Safaricom launch, because I invited a lot of people that I know. So we had a really fun time. But Safaricom launch was the same day. So yeah, it's really special.
That was clever, by the way.
Yeah, and it's great. I go to Safaricom now and I keep seeing the plaque, and I just think, oh, that's nice.
And you sneaked it in very cleverly.
Very cleverly. Very cleverly. And they don't forget it. I mean, there's even now, like I will always get a message from Michael Joseph on my birthday.
Wow.
All these years later, every year.
A message from Michael Joseph on your birthday.
Every year.
Okay. That takes us to relationships and networking. one of my notes in the book is my observation. Your father Shamsu was a great beneficiary of relationships.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Right? And I think top of mind, his golden threads, right? Mm-hmm. One of his golden threads is how he gets to work and to own the Nanyuki joint and the support he gets. Yeah. There is no way he qualifies to own that joint without relationship.
100% not. He was a poor man. I mean, he didn't have the money to buy a hotel. Are you kidding?
That's a strong statement. I'm a big fan of strong statements. Please, for our audience's sake, please break down the golden thread your father benefits from to bridge the gap between being a poor man and owning a hotel.
So my father came from India as a stowaway at the age of 14. He got on a boat. He did not know where he was going. And he hid because obviously he was a child. And if he'd been discovered earlier, they would have had to take him back to port. So he hid until they were far out into the sea when they weren't able to go back. And when he did appear, there were people on the boat, older Indians who saw this child and it's like, okay, we have a child here. So they started to look after him on the boat, made sure he ate, made sure he had a place to sleep. And when they got to Mombasa, these people were from Nanyuki. And they left him in the care of the mosque in Mombasa. And they went to Nanyuki. And they kept in touch with him by mail. They would send him letters. And when he was 17, they wrote to him and said, the British Army are looking for a storekeeper. And so we would like you to come. Would you like to move to Nanyuki? And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? And so he went to Nanyuki. So this is a relationship that he's built from the age of 14 to 17 when he goes to Nanyuki. And they looked after him when he was there because he was still quite young. And he worked for the British Army for, I think maybe 7 years. His boss living in the Sportsman's Arms Hotel, which my father wasn't allowed to enter because he wasn't white. But he never complained. He would stand out there in the sun waiting every day for the gentleman to come and sign off his work. And then he left after 7 years and went back to Mombasa and still kept in touch with the family that he met on the boat. Taught in Mombasa for a while and then married my mother, and years later said to my mother he wanted to take her back to Nanyuki to show where he'd spent years. And when he went back there, the family said to him, the Sportsman's Arms is for sale because the lady that owns it and runs it is getting worried because independence is coming and she doesn't know what it will be like, so she's selling. And he was like, interesting. And he went and thought about it and said, this would be a really nice place to live. My wife and I can both work in the hotel, but I don't have any money to buy it. So he then went and said to this family, why don't you buy it and I will work and my shares will be in my work. So he put in the sweat capital. So
Sweat capital.
Sweat capital.
And?
That was just running the business, him and my mom, until they had worked enough to buy out the family that put in the original money.
Sweat capital.
Yeah.
We learn every day.
Yeah.
So the deal was, he doesn't get paid.
No.
He gets to own a piece of the hotel.
Correct. Yeah, he doesn't get paid, but the family lived there. So we lived on the premises. I wasn't born when they bought the hotels. I was born in Nanyuki some years later, but my sisters were already born. But he doesn't get a salary. My mom doesn't get a salary. They just worked and worked enough to a point where they'd accumulated enough to say, we can now pay you off and we can take the balance from the bank and we'll have a loan with the bank, because obviously they hadn't worked enough to pay the entire amount. But they could, between paying off some to the people that put in the initial money to then going to the bank. And by then they'll build a relationship with the bank. It was actually Barclays. But by then they knew the bank manager. The bank managers would come and have lunch there. So there was already a network of, actually, we can lend money to these people because they're good people. But it wasn't the day after he moved in. There was time to build these relationships, which is what I say is networks are built over periods of time. We don't just decide that I've just met you. You're not my network. People just assume that as soon as you've met somebody, they become part of your network, and that's definitely not the case.
What's the case? Because people are big on networking. There's a word being thrown around, your network is your net worth.
I mean, I think it can be, but networks need to be built. Relationships need to be invested in. You need to build. I have a big network, but it's people that I invest in, that I see regularly, that we interact often, that I know their families, that I know their kids. It's not people that I just happen to meet. They don't become my network on the next day.
I'll give you an example. You're also a beneficiary of relationships, and your father also benefits from this, let's say, secondhand. You meet someone at the hotel who happens to be someone feared in government circles, and this person invites you to President Moi's inauguration as a friend.
Yeah.
Right? I confuse. I don't think it's Sam.
No, it was the PC Mathenge.
The PC Mathenge. Yes. People fear him.
People really feared him. I don't know why, because he was the most beautiful, sweet man to me. He was just a very nice. I think he presented himself as this man that was very close to Moi. People feared Moi, so by extension, they probably feared everybody that worked with him. But actually, Isaiah Mathenge was an incredibly generous-hearted man, and somebody that I got to know well. And I was almost like his daughter.
You're a teenager by the time.
I was a teenager by then, but
right?
He's just somebody that you're working at the hotel, so you meet people, and I met him, and for some reason we just got along really well. He was very fatherly towards me, and we would talk. We would talk on the phone, and then Moi dies, and I'm just like, oh God, this is. I mean, I want to be part of. Kenyatta dies.
Yes.
I just want to be part of this history. And I don't know how old I was, 15 or 16. I'm going to call him and say, can I come for the inauguration? And he's like, yeah, why not? And so I think it's the audacity of just being able to ask. What's the worst thing that somebody can say? They can say no. But I have zero problem asking.
Zero problem asking.
I don't have a problem asking.
By virtue of the fact that he comes to your father's hotel, over time you build a relationship based on how you engage. So when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta dies, and the idea comes that you'd like to be part of the history, you call him because he's able.
And
to
also
make
because
that
my
happen.
father would be like, I'm not calling anybody for that. I was like, I want to go to that inauguration. He's like, it's going to be really hard to go. And I'm like, I'm going to try. And I said, I'm going to call the PC. And he's like, I don't think he'll even pick up your calls. He's so busy right now. Why would you want to bother him? I was like, well, I'm going to try. And he picked up my call. Yes, Gina, what? I said, I want to come to the, oh, okay, no problem. Just come. And so I said to my father, we're going to go to this thing in Nakuru. And he's like, no. Do you have the invitation? I was like, nope. Mr. Mathenge says I call him when I get to Nakuru. And my father was like, he's going to say that. When we get there, it's going to be so chaotic. He won't even remember you. I was like, I really want to go. So we went, and Mr. Mathenge did not let me down. The minute we got there, we called his office. We had to go to the hotel in Nakuru, call his office, and he said, okay, just wait outside and I'll come and pick you up. And he personally came and picked us up and took us into the inauguration. He was a very special man.
And on such a special day, you even get to say hi to President Moi.
Correct. And
you also, by extension, become President Moi's friend.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to pronounce how he used to call you.
Chinding. Ching Ting.
Ting Ting. And this is, again, by extension of the relationship. Yeah, I think this is like a connect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being known to Moi then is such a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, that's day one.
And he gets you a seat, I think 1 or 2.
Yeah, we were right there with the cabinet. You know, it was right, literally, we were, and my father was very surprised. He just looked at me, he's like, I don't know how you did this. Because I then introduced President Moi to my father, who's like, but I know him. And I'm just like, okay, well, I brought him. So it was my turn it was my event. It was my invitation that got us there.
You introduced cool. President Moi to your father?
Yeah, but they knew each other.
They knew each other?
Yeah, but not well enough where we would be at the inauguration.
How does your father build from scratch, work to build a hotel, and then it becomes something that creates a connection to him with who is who in the country?
So Nanyuki is a really interesting place. It was, a stopping point for many people going to Meru or, going to Isiolo. Mm-hmm. So it was like a natural place for people to stop and have a drink. So there were all sorts of people that came there.
Okay.
So from President Kibaki, who wasn't president then, but to everybody, the cabinet that was going through Nanyuki, they would all stop off there. And my mother was a legendary cook. So they would all stop off for Mama's curry. So they became like family because they were there so much. So, it wouldn't be unusual for us to have a VIP at the hotel. It was every day there would be somebody there. So it became quite normal.
Okay.
And I think that had a huge impact on who I am. It's because it was very normal for me at that time to have people around, that you're creating relationships with them, from when I was very young.
That's a very interesting word, creating relationships. There's a difference between knowing someone and creating a relationship.
Correct.
Mutually beneficial that you can leverage on.
And also becoming a friend. I think we place so much emphasis on a network in a very transactional way.
Thank you.
It's like, I want you in my network because I know what you can do for me, is with the way a lot of people perceive network. And I don't perceive network that way. I'm genuinely very interested in people. I'm very interested in their lives. I'm interested in their family. I'm interested in their ambitions, in what inspires them. And so I'm very much a person that I don't really, it doesn't matter to me whether we're ever going to work together. It's not about that transaction. I'm genuinely interested in people. And that's been a huge benefit to me because, people can tell when you're really interested or whether you're just like, I'm here for whatever you can do for me.
Yes,
I mean, the number of people that have been able to do something for me, they're not, you can, count them on two hands maybe. But I'm genuinely interested in people, and I've benefited from having friendships that have made me grow as a person, not necessarily because there's been a transaction, but because I've learned from your experience as a person who's grown to do amazing things. Mm-hmm. I benefit from that, just listening to your story, your growth, your challenge, not because you can do anything for me, but your story, your life is inspiring, and that benefits me. And so that's, for me, is a network. It's not about the transaction.
That's a special kind of freedom because when we were discussing you getting the Safaricom gig, you said something along the lines of, like, what you're bringing to the table, right? So they're not doing you a favor. So it's not about what you may get from that engagement.
I think it was very exciting to get the first mobile company coming into Kenya, starting out an industry. There was a lot going on for me at that time. My business was new. It was a year old. So I'm starting out my own business. People don't quite understand what a standalone PR company is at the time. So I'm building a brand for my business. I'm building a brand for my industry. That happens. And then I get Safaricom, and I have to build a new brand called Safaricom and a new industry called the mobile phone industry. So there's a lot happening in my life in that period. I'm trying to get people to understand that actually having a standalone PR company is a thing. It's a business. I'm going to be fine. because there was a lot of concern about, I don't think there's enough work for a standalone PR company. I think you should combine it with advertising. And I was like, I don't know anything about advertising. I'm not an advertising person. I'm a PR person. I'm a storyteller. I can create a brand, but I'm not a creative agency. And, you know, there was some doubt amongst many people, even people in my own family, about, are you going to be able to do this? So I was very excited to get the Safaricom account, but it wasn't like, I knew what I was bringing to them. I was excited about how our ideas would merge, about what, you know, the experience I'd had working at Barclays with the incredible brand that Vodafone is. So I was very excited about that collaboration, because that's what it was at the end of the day. It was a collaboration.
Very nice. So there's also another important point you say that I wouldn't want us to leave hanging, right? When you meet people, right, you're not looking at the engagement from a transactional point of view. No. What can you do for me? Then what's the difference between when, okay, someone is your friend and you need something to be done and they need to do it? Because there's a difference between knowing someone. Let's say I know the president, right? I can go do something by myself, but probably his input would make things easier. I'll give you an example. I quit my job too at Nation, and around that time, I had made friends with a group finance director. He was genuinely my friend, but I couldn't tell him that I'm quitting because I felt it would jeopardize.
Yeah, I went through that too.
Yeah, the relationship I have with him. So I had to tell him after that I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier, because I would feel that I'm taking advantage of our friendship, right? And after I leave Nation, he becomes the acting CEO, and I'm tempted to do the show I used to do because I have a formula, but I'm struggling with, I can't go through him. I can't go through him because I still again would feel.
So I think there's a lot of guilt in us asking for things. I think sometimes we just, you know, we feel some sort of shame about having to ask somebody for something. And I think that's a disadvantage, because if I have somebody that I need to meet that somebody might know, I'm very happy to ask them, like, by the way, do you know so-and-so? And if it's not a burden for you, are you able to connect me to them? I have zero problem doing that. And I also trust my network and my friendships enough for them to say, you know what, I don't feel quite comfortable doing that. And I'm okay with that. You know, that doesn't change my relationship with you because you're not able to introduce me to that person, but at least I've asked. The chances of somebody saying no are quite slim. And in my life, there've been very few where they're like, actually, I don't know them well enough to be able to introduce you. Most times they'll be like, yeah, sure. What do you need? Let me drop them a note. And after that, it's really up to you, because I also am a firm believer in somebody can open the door for you, but you still have to walk through it. I've opened the door for so many people, and you know, it's fine. But at the end of the day, you have to walk through that door. I can take you there. I can't do the work for you. So you know, the people that I've asked for introductions also know me well enough where they're able to say, of course, because they have a sense of trust. And also that I don't ask very often. You know, I'm the person that will be like, I'll try everything until I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I need to ask so-and-so because they know this person. So I think there's that, and then also because people know me as I'm not a transactional person. They'll know that I'll only really ask if I've no other way of being able to reach that person.
You're not a transactional person.
No.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I'm really not.
So also, it's very, I'm a big fan of understanding how money works. When you and your husband, Chris, are looking for an apartment, and there's a very interesting word in there. We are looking for a house we can afford. You're working in a bank, you're making money.
I mean, it was okay. It wasn't great, but yeah, it was okay.
What does that look like? What does affording mean in this context?
Something where we could pay either the mortgage or the rent comfortably, without having to struggle. So when I joined Barclays, I was on a contract, so I wasn't able to get cheap money like a banker would, because I was, they took me on a 9-month contract initially. So they, you can borrow, but it's at commercial rates. It's like any other customer.
Yes.
But then when we were struggling with our housing and we had issues of renting, and I went to my boss and I said, look, I don't want to rent, I need to buy. And I can't afford the commercial rates that you have. So is there any way that I can get staff rates? And he said, well, you can for the 9 months that you're going to be here. So we can set you up, we give you the money. And for the period that you're here, we can give you staff rates. And that's an exception. They didn't normally do that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I ended up staying 14 years. So it was fine, easy to pay. But initially, it was for the period that I was going to work there. And then after that, it would have to translate to a commercial loan.
You are big on planning. Did you plan on what happens if you go back to commercial rates?
No, I just knew I would always be fine. I would always stand, I would always get on my feet. My where I was going to next, I would just have to factor that in to whatever new salary I was going to get. Is that right now, the benefit I have is I get cheap loans. So if I was going to another company, that would be a benefit that I would tell them. Right now, I'm able to get money at whatever it was, 2%. So you need to factor that into the salary I'm going to get from you, because that is a benefit I'm getting from. It's a negotiating. It's how I would negotiate. But anyway, that never arose because I didn't go and work for anybody else. I went from working at Barclays to working for myself.
You were still young then.
I was very young.
But you're very conscious about the cost of money.
I worked in a bank, so I did a lot of financial literacy work. We had to do financial literacy for our clients. So we were always talking about affordability and, ensuring that the clients knew what they were getting into with loans. I learned a lot from working. I didn't know until I worked at the bank.
You didn't know until you worked at the bank? Wow. And your first experience meeting Barack Obama, this stuck in my head because this is his inauguration?
No. It was the Africa-US summit, the heads of state summit, that he invited the African heads of state to.
In the US?
In the US.
He's president?
He's president.
He's on high demand?
He's in high demand.
In this event, everybody wants a piece of him?
Definitely. There was something about him that was just incredible. And I was very interested in, well, first of all, the Kenyan heritage part was fascinating.
Yes.
His story is amazing and inspiring, because from, a young man who basically grew up without his dad, and being able to imagine his life in the way that he did is very inspiring. But the first day that I met him, there was something about the grace and the ease in which he operated from that was just beautiful, because he was very sure of himself. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was just very comfortable in who he was. And so the day that I did meet him, it was actually with President Kenyatta, and everybody did want a part of him. And he tried to give everybody a part of him. There just wasn't enough minutes in the day. But he was engaging, he was interested in people's stories. So as much as we were interested in him, he was equally as interested in the people that were there. And I loved that about him. There was a humility that made him just a very special human being. But I knew that day and that night when we went to the state dinner, that wouldn't be the last time that I saw him.
You knew?
Yeah, I just knew it.
He can be excused for forgetting people because he meets people every day.
All the time. Mm-hmm.
How do you make sure he does not forget you? And this is in the context of how do you make a connection with someone who it's excusable for him to
I
actually
mean, I don't
connect?
think you can plan on on connecting. You can't. That is either two people connect or they don't.
Yes.
So it's not something that you can really have a strategy on, or
Yes.
it's just something that comes naturally. Him and I, very interesting, was the first time that we met was there were three people in the room that were all born in 1961, that were all left-handed, and that had a connection to Kenya. And that was Barack Obama, Uhuru Kenyatta, and myself. The three of us are all left-handed, all born in 1961. So that was the first thing. I was like, oh, by the way. So that was my first thing to him. We're all left-handed. But we connected straight away, though. And I've really enjoyed the times I've spent with him. He's an incredible human being. Just from a human perspective. Never mind the title, never mind who he was or who he became. Just from a human point of view, he's just a very rare.
So that comes up in conversation as like, oh, guys, coincidence.
Yeah, why not?
Wow.
I mean, there's an icebreaker. Like, by the way, there are three of us in this room. And he's like, is that right? I said, yeah. Yourself, President Kenyatta, and me, all born in 61. He said, we look pretty good for being born in 61. I said, yeah, I think we look great.
Okay. Interestingly,
Yeah.
my connection to October 1961 is my father, but he's not left-handed.
Oh,
He
shame.
would have been odd one. He would have been the odd one out because he's right-handed, of course. Now, before we close, in terms of your experience in the corporate sector, there's also another interesting word that I noted: vertical versus horizontal growth. What does this mean?
So, I'll just give you different seasons. I think is probably easier. Is that I look at starting a business as I was a startup before startups were startups. I was a startup.
Yeah.
Startups got into fashion much later, but I was the original startup.
Yes.
So you look at that, and you're the person that can do everything. I was the account manager, the finance person, the messenger. Literally everything ran around me because that's all I could afford. And then you get a couple of clients and you grow a little bit, and you're like, oh, this is good. I've got a couple of employees, a couple of clients. And then you start to scale a little bit by hiring people. And then I go through what I would call my desert phase, is that there's suddenly you're in this desert by yourself. You don't know when the next job is coming, because you could be in the desert for a very long time. But you have to prepare for that desert. You have to prepare, you have to have water. You have to have enough to take you through that desert. So I look at that period of my life and say, there was periods when I was in the desert, and then there's a period where it's cool. You have enough work, you've got enough staff. It's a lifestyle. It helps you have a particular kind of lifestyle. And then and that's easy because you're paying your bills, you're growing. But then you want to scale it to the next level. And then you're having to hire, you have to get into much more systems of HR and, all these other systems that you have. So it's very interesting how growth is not linear. There'll be years that you can grow so much in 1 year. And then for the next 5 years, you're really not growing at all. So I think it's important that we look at being an entrepreneur as not a straight line. There'll be just times when you'll be, you won't grow for long periods of time. And that's also okay. But, at that time, I would look at it and say, oh, actually, we've had the same number of clients that we've had for the last 4 years. There must be something wrong. And there isn't anything wrong. It's just the very nature of your journey.
It's the nature
of the journey. And I've been I've been really lucky to have I had no map, when I set out on this journey, no map, nothing, no compass, no anything. And somehow I figured it out. So I now look at growths of organizations and say it's not linear. There'll be times when it goes off to the side. There'll be times you'll be in the desert. There'll be times when it'll all be lush, and you'll be, this is good. I've got clients queuing up. I'm saying no. But it won't always be like that. And it's just a matter of accepting both. Like I can take that. I can also take this. But I think you need to be more mature to accept that. I think when you're younger, you see lean periods as failure. And now I look at them and they're not. They're just part of that journey. And it's okay. It's okay not to be productive. It's like we put so much pressure on having to be productive every day. But I think now I appreciate the days when actually it's a lean day. I don't have to be productive today. I can do something that I want to do for myself. I can just go read a book, or I can go for a walk. I go to the gym. It's okay. It's we shouldn't have to be busy every single minute of the day. It's also not very healthy for you. So I'm very much that person that's come to a balance of I can work the 12 hours a day, but I'm also okay with a couple of days a week just being able to do what I want to do. Hang out with my friends, going out for lunch with people I haven't seen for a while, go to the gym. It's all fine. I don't have to be busy every day.
You could have been comfortable at your father's hotel, work there, and continue the family business.
I could have.
It's also interesting. You may need to grab a copy of Gina Din's book. The link is in the description to get to know how she got her first job and how she actually got her job at Barclays. The importance about connections.
That's
and I think you describe yourself somewhere in the book as Kenyan girl with connections, right? You could have stayed at Barclays and retired at Barclays. You had a good job. But if you did not step out of the Barclays job, there is no way you're getting the Safaricom gig.
It's really interesting. I look at my own children who could have also just taken over my brand. And there was a comfort for them in that. It was an established brand. Why wouldn't they? And yet, when I sort of said to them, but my son is the one who said to me, so Mom, what's your succession plan? And I'm sitting there with my two kids and I'm looking at them saying, what kind of question is that? Because you guys are my succession plan. And he's like, no, we're not. Because that's not our dream. That's your dream. And so, it took me aback a little bit. I was just like, wow, that's a bit harsh. But then I look and say, I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That hotel was my father's dream.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to settle for that. I had my own dream. I didn't want to settle for living in Nanyuki in a hotel. Why would I? And so I think it's just very important that we respect everybody's journey and what their dreams are. And my children definitely showed me that. They're doing incredibly well as two, successful individuals. I'm very proud of the journeys that they've taken. But we should never settle. Why would we settle? I mean, I'm not settled now.
What is the motivation?
There's more for me to learn.
There's a special kind of freedom, and I'm actually working on a monologue about that, about the drive not being money.
I agree. It definitely isn't. I mean, for me, the drive is impact. The drive is to be able to go into an organization or a government or wherever and just leave it better than I found it, just equipping them or capacity building the people in there so that they have the skill set to be able to do what they do better. It's not about the money.
You negotiate on the money, on value.
Yeah, I mean, I know what I bring.
But it's not the main thing that we are
And also,
on.
I've been offered money to do work that I'm not interested in doing, so I won't do it. So if it's something that doesn't inspire me, there's no way I'm going to just do it.
Let me give you an example. And this goes to, please take us through your process of saying no to money. I have a friend who has villas in Diani. His name is Andreas. So he builds a villa, and I don't think the costs go past 16 million, like just putting it together. And then the idea blows up. The idea grows to the level where someone offers him, I think 52 million top offer. And I asked him, did you reject the offer? He said yes. And his answer was, what am I going to do with the money? That answer plays in my head a lot of times, because we have people who you're chasing the next best offer.
And also, but you know what? I think your inner peace is so important. I don't think there's any value for just having peace in your heart, right? So you can chase all this money, and there can also be a lot of stress attached to that chase. There's some people that want to do that. That's not what I want to do. I'm just very interested in work being interesting to me. I mean, I have to be really interested to do the work that, you know, is being offered to me, especially now where I'm at in my life. I'm just like, if it's not interesting to me, I'm not interested in doing it. I've done a lot of work that I wasn't interested in when I was younger, for sure, because I had bills to pay. I mean, you know, I had a big staff. So there was some work that I did that I was like, okay, we'll do it. It's like not the most exciting work in the world, but it'll pay a few bills. And so
So not everybody has not every time that you have the luxury of saying no to money.
100%. But now I've also learned that no is a complete sentence. You know, I never said no. And I think, you know, the older I've got, I realize that no is a complete sentence. I mean, I can say no easily. And I tend to say no now more than I say yes.
But that's a mindset you grow into.
Yeah. And because I know, like, the work that is interesting, that I find interesting, and that my skill set will work with, will find me at some point. It'll find me. We'll find each other.
But that's a stage you get to. There's a place you knock doors.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place I've broken doors down, not just knocked. I mean, I've broken doors down at places to make myself heard. I've done all that. But you know what? I'm now at a point where if it doesn't interest me, if it doesn't inspire me, I won't do it.
So this also, I believe, to fit this in context, this also goes to the place where now you're trying to make a case for why Safaricom is, as in getting Safaricom into the Kenyan market, dealing with government bureaucracies. And this is where I mentioned one of my mentors, Larry Mado, teaches me a principle that it is better to apologize than to ask for permission. And this goes a long way into how Safaricom becomes, because government bureaucracies slows things down from then. And actually this book paints the picture of how slow the process is that actually
If you look at the M-Pesa story, which was exactly that, where we just looked for forgiveness after it was launched. Because if you'd waited for regulatory approval, it wouldn't have happened. But it was interesting. You know, it's interesting. You look at M-Pesa and you look at my Barclays story, and building branches brick by brick, you know, community by community.
Yeah.
And then M-Pesa, which was no bricks. You know, it was a SIM card and your phone, and getting people to trust that actually you can have your bank in your pocket with the device you're walking around with every day. So the principles were the same. You know, Barclays was branch by branch, brick by brick, in communities where they needed to be. But the M-Pesa story was really, it's just a different way of doing it. It was the same trust that was required in those communities for banking. And then it was the same trust that they needed in Safaricom for M-Pesa. So the principles of what I learned at Barclays were very much the same set of principles that we worked on with M-Pesa. It's just a different way of approaching it, and a really fascinating way of approaching it. You know, you look at money and banking and the bricks and mortar required at that time to now where it's just, you know, this and your SIM card. I mean, it's so fascinating to be able to establish those industries into the market. It's just the most satisfying.
You had your sisters at your father's hotel in Nanyuki. So they also get to meet the people you are exposed to. But it is only you that becomes Gina Din.
They left, so their dreams were not in Kenya. So they went on to do other things all over the world. I was the only one that stayed here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 14 years experience, and I think this now got me confused between spirituality and how things are written, how they are meant to be. Because when I read your book, I'm like, it was necessary for you to be in Barclays for 14 years.
Every step that you take in life is necessary to get you to the next one, right? I mean, I think all of our journeys, you would not have been where you are if you hadn't been at Nation. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. So I don't think any part of our journey is wasted. It's all preparing us for what is to come next.
So now there's a difference between what are you doing as you wait for what comes next.
Sometimes you don't
Or
have to
your
do
path
anything. Sometimes you don't have to do anything.
Just wait for the doors.
Yeah, sometimes you're just like, okay, chill. But it's something I've had to learn, because I was also one of those overproductive, anxious people, like who felt like if I wasn't doing anything, there was something wrong. I'm no longer like that. I'm just like, okay, you know, what the right thing for me to do will appear. And I'm very...
That's a paradox
and
now.
but you know, I think waiting is also part of maturity, being able to wait and trust the process of whatever's going on, because in that world of the universe, things are happening that you don't even know.
But you do realize there's a difference between waiting as Gina Din and waiting as the teenager you are before you went and asked for your first journalism gig.
But I think that a mindset doesn't change that much. If I had the audacity to do that when I was a teenager, I also have the audacity now as a much older person of being able to say, that work will find me, because it will. And I know it will. It's the same audacity. And if you're audacious then, it's the same thing. You're just like, I don't need to chase that. Okay. Because you know, if it's meant to be for me, it'll find me. Yeah. I know what I bring to the table. I know that, you know, the experience I have, there are very few people that have that level of experience that I bring.
Yeah.
So if it's meant to be for me and it's the value that I think I'm worth, it'll find me. And if it doesn't, it wasn't meant to be for me. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I only want to do things that are really going to impact the continent. I want to do things, and I do work right across, you know, I work right across the continent now, office in Johannesburg, and I travel widely, but just for very interesting work. I'm really not interested in doing something that's not going to inspire me. I've done it.
You're only doing interesting stuff.
Yeah. And I really am doing some interesting things.
Congratulations, Zarinoda. Yani, there's so much to go on, and I think we've just scratched the surface on the things I wished we could exhaust in this conversation.
I'm happy to come back.
Okay.
Yeah, so
we are happy to set up another one. We're happy to set up another one. Thank you for making time for us. And I think we should actually say that I take it as a compliment when you say you're only doing interesting stuff and you made time for our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For our audience too.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
And we'll catch up on a second.
100%, because there's so much we needed to hear from you as far as branding is concerned. The idea of opportunities, because you've experienced businesses that succeed and business that have failed, and how much does personal effort, communication, strategy have to do with
and also I think the other thing that's important, you know, is that we take our clients' failure very personally. And I used, you know, it would be like heart-wrenching for me if the client failed at something, you know, because I lived that brand. So if something went wrong for that client, it would pain me. And I think that's, you know, it's very much, you become that personality. And I think that's very important in communications and PR, is you have to become that brand. You can't be just the external consultant. You have to live, breathe. When the Kenya Airways crash happened, I was completely devastated as a person. You know, it was a horrible thing to happen, tragic in every sense of the word, but it was a very personal pain. So I think it's really important that, you know, people in this industry realize that it's not just a job. You know, it's a calling, and it's a calling that you live, you become that. You have to love that brand. You have to really respect the brand that you're telling the story of. And if you don't respect it, don't do it. It'll never be authentic.
But living a brand, when you live a brand, when you have experience, long time experience, seeing businesses that work and business that don't. A client comes to you and you already know the strategy is going nowhere because you've probably lived someone else's experience.
So I think one of the things that we do, when we would take on a new client, is we look at that strategy and we'll say, can we work with that strategy? Is it a workable strategy or isn't it? And if it's not, then, and if they're not willing to change it, then that would go against the grain of what I do, because I know we're not going to be going far. So quite often, clients will give us their strategy to write. And then that helps us all have a beginning point that all of us can work on. So I usually insist on that we have a strategy, or if it's a strategy that you've had done elsewhere, let's look at it. Let me suggest a few things that we can change. But strategy is everything, and it's something that we do really well.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I picked a copy of this book. Special thanks to Bule from Nuria Store for making this possible, and the person who first nudged me, because I wouldn't want to have you on the show before I read the book.
Sure.
And the person who nudged me, my friend Dr. Ken Alora, was undergoing surgery, and then his partner just mentions in passing, could you like to have Gina Din on the show? Yeah, so special thanks to Stella Waroy, who also nudged me. Then I went to, so the first sighting was, I go to Nini, I pick up my library update at the Nuria Store. Then the next time, Bule was like, have you read Gina Din?
Nuria is great. I mean, I think they just do wonderful work.
100%.
And I'm a big fan of theirs.
Thank you. And Pia, Stella Waroy, for actually setting this up. She actually texted. I believe really? You are in the same industry, so she texted because she's been following up on our progress in setting this up. And we have a very beautiful team. Also, Mercy has been...
Oh, she's amazing. Mercy's a star. Absolute star.
Actually, I'd like to get to that level of professionalism in terms of planning things. And you are a, can I say, super timekeeper.
I have to try. You have to respect other people's time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you too. Asante sana.